Hi, this is Isabel Litzler. So I wanted to introduce you to a series of 3 presentations. So the first one is going to be this Monday about changing careers in 12 weeks. And the next 2 Mondays, I will cover how to create opportunities in a tight market like Switzerland. And finally, how to create a business. So all of which can really be tied together because in the end, it's about finding a resourceful way to create employment and find employment for yourself. So the first series starts with changing careers. A lot of people have talked to me recently. They came up and mostly people who are specialists want to make it to manager, have a broader scope. And the thing is in Switzerland is that you tend to be a little bit specialized, sometimes overly specialized. So people work in extremely specialized areas, and when they're ready to do something different, they're faced with a lot of barriers because they don't have the network, they're not trained for the new specialty, or they can't really progress because people don't take them seriously, etc. So I'm going to give you some lines of thoughts in this presentation so that you can understand where to go from there. So the first step will really be about reflection, and I cannot insist enough on this. I see people hasting too much sometimes in making changes. It's going to be something that you have to live with and explain to employers. So you don't want to do changes on a whim. You want to really make sure that that's what you want, because then you're going to have again to explain it. So if you do too many changes, and again here I'm talking more about the younger generation, especially if you're still in school, really think about your future and test things a little bit before you sign up for a whole program, and try to meet people who can talk about the job that you're interested in, because again, once you're in a specialty, it's really hard to get out of it. So we'll talk about reflection, we'll talk about the steps you need to take to get out and to change careers, and finally how to make a better application when you're changing careers. So the reflection before you make a change. There's a certain amount of questions that you should ask yourself when you're ready to change. So the first one is the marketing hiring people in the field I want to work in? So that's really the first thing, is the market. So I know you may have passions for a certain specialty, but if it doesn't exist where you're going to live, it's going to be tough. So try to, and I've said this before as well, try to assess also where you want to live in your life. I know it's difficult sometimes, especially if you're young, but try to see, do you want to be a local professional, someone who travels and lives in different countries? If that's the case, I would strongly encourage you to pick a field that can travel with you. So if you're picking a field that's extremely specialized in your country, it's going to be tough. Again, in Switzerland, there's jobs that are extremely needed and others that are not. So I see too many marketing professionals in Switzerland who are looking for work. Especially if you're not really heavily in digital marketing these days, it's going to be tough. So that's my recommendation, is really to think about the market. What does the market require? Okay, you look at the jobs, especially if you're looking for a training right now as a student, and take it from there. Is the marketing seeking specialists or generalists? Again, in Switzerland, it's mostly specialists. So again, in terms of market, there's going to be more opportunities for specialized roles. A lot of people in watchmaking, for example, or nannies or things like that, extremely specialized. Child care, elderly care, hospitals, and so forth. If you're a general manager, for example, and you've touched on a lot of things, then there's less jobs in Switzerland. That's just in general, that's the way the market is built. Do I know anyone working in the profession? So if you know people already where you want to work, I would again strongly suggest you talk to them first before you invest in time and money in a degree, in applying and all that. Try to talk to individuals who are doing the job. So if you're targeting, I don't know, to be a supply chain specialist in Switzerland, try to speak with people who are in that field and who are doing the job. That's what I do when we work on skills assessment with my clients. We work on what it is that they want to do, and test it with the market is a step I have included there. So it's so important, because you may like something, you may think it's great, and then I've had clients who came back to me and say, I talked to these people, it's not what I thought it was. And sometimes there's a misrepresentation of a job, and People really underestimate that, in my personal opinion. Did I speak to anyone in this profession who could advise on advantages and disadvantages? So you need, again, people who are going to give you the full scope, not just the glasses with the pink, the clouds and everything. You want someone who can really give it to you the way it is. So that's why sometimes it's better to talk to people, linking that to some presentations I've made on networking. You want to go to your weak links, people who don't know you, who don't have any feeling positive or negative about you, can really tell you the truth. The problem, if you speak with friends and family, they tend to tell you to go in your direction. I think it's natural. You don't want to hurt people. So if they say, I want to become a space physicist, people say, well, this is great, fantastic, let's plan for your education. It's normal. Everyone wants to be supportive in your family. But in reality, that Switzerland needs physicists space physicists. Is there are a lot of jobs recruiting in this area. So you need someone who will tell you the truth. So some of the food for thought, I call it, is that to remember in general is that most employers do not like job hoppers. So it's getting a little easier now for job changers or career changers because especially with the millennial generation, they like to have promotions and change jobs and so forth. But in Switzerland, it's still very conservative. So make sure you thought about it before, again, on the consequences of your career. When I see people who are in their 20s and they want to retrain in something new because they realize they didn't like it, just be careful that you don't do that too many times and then you end up with this resume where you're a jack of no trade. So that's it. Think about really ahead of time as much as you can. Again, I'm going to have probably some people maybe in the commentaries there who are not going to agree with me. But if you're over 40 years old, I would say be extremely careful because you're basically adding up to the difficulties there already. Past a certain age, it's going to be harder to be picked because there's younger generation coming in. So if you're adding to that a career change, then you're competing with people who are out of school, who have just finished the degree. So you just have to be careful again that you manage your career properly. And there's a time where it's getting a little bit more, there's more hazard to changing careers. I would say past 40, 45, just know that it doesn't mean it's impossible. I just met a gentleman a few years back who got a job at 60. So there's no, again, you see examples of exceptions everywhere, but let's not make the exception the rule. In general, in the job market, being above 45 is considered senior and it's just harder to get a job. So you just have to be careful about that. But if you're convinced and this is your true calling, and I also want to support people who find their true calling, you've checked that there's a market for what you're doing and you're comfortable with it, then you should go for it, and nothing worse than regret. So what are the 6 steps to take when you're looking to do a career change? So the 6 steps to take should start with that you need to be prepared. So again, preparation is going to be key. You need to be prepared to change completely your profile online and offline to project yourself in something new. And I'll tell you the example of someone I worked with, and I want to raise it because again, it's triggering this whole reflection. Someone was a banker her entire career, so she had a good level of salary, very good recognition, in banking, etc. And at one point, she had some type of career crisis where she said, okay, I don't want to work in banking anymore. I want to do online entrepreneurship. And she tried this for a few years. And then last time I saw her, she said, I'm giving up because I'm not getting enough money and I want to go back to banking for the salary, the image and everything else. So she realized really something that was almost like a short-term, maybe a fashionable type of, web entrepreneurship, it's cool and let's try that, turned out not to be the right solution for her. So this is just my 2 cents of caution there, that sometimes you see your friend might be happy in a job and you say, wow, I want to do this. This person gets paid great money, or maybe they get to travel, or, you're going to make assessment on a few things that you see that are cool and you don't really take advantage. We tend as humans to have a a vision that's a little bit blinded sometimes because we let our emotions take over. And sometimes also the group pressure, people work in a certain industry, they may convince you that this is right for you. So you just have to be careful. Again, changing careers is a big decision, and just because something is hype or your friends do it, etc., doesn't mean it's right for you. So if you have a great job, and maybe what I do also with individuals is try to have them think about, are they just bored in the job because they need more responsibilities maybe, or they need to take care maybe of projects, or are they really looking for a complete change of career? Sometimes, again, if it's not diagnosed properly, sometimes people just need a little bit of excitement in the job. Maybe they need to just change jobs and not necessarily careers. Could just be that they're with the wrong manager, or it's not the proper culture in the company, and maybe they go to another company and then it solves the issue. So that's why diagnose of your pain, basically your pain points. Are you really needing to change careers, or is it just maybe the wrong manager, or you're not in the right company culture, etc. So before you make that 360 jump, maybe it's just a 100 degree jump. So it's different. The second thing is, most people want to change job, but they keep speaking about the past. So if you're going to go for a job change, a career change, you need to really put your past in the past. So meaning, if you were, again, we use the example of banking, if you were 20 years in banking and now you decide to be an entrepreneur, an online entrepreneur, then, when you meet with people and when you talk about your business, you don't want to keep insisting on what you did before, maybe in banking, but you want to insist maybe on your new project. And especially if you're looking for a job, you want to show you're motivated for the new job. So that's something I've seen also in my experience with people who have long careers, especially, they tend to be stuck in the past. So career change is something that you're going to have to embrace your new career and really live in the future. So the following steps basically, so you have step number 1. What is your DNA? So your DNA is basically what I call, it's what's in your blood, So if you don't know this, if you tell me I have no idea what my thing is, and I like to use this sentence, what your thing is, if you don't know what that is, and most people, let's face it, especially if you're out of school and you're still figuring yourself out, most people don't know what this is. So they're probably going to go through a phase where they're job hopping or trying to find themselves. It's so important. You're going to see your life really change when you're in the right fit. So, and it might take some few trials and errors with some companies and being fired a few times or let go or what have you to understand that you're not in the right thing. So your DNA really is about who you are, what you stand for, what you're really in line with. So again, I could only encourage you to look at the market, see what type of jobs are out there, get interviews with people, and try to see what could be a good fit for you. And also, self-discovery is best when you do some traveling. So, take the time to travel, take the time to meet new people. What I find has worked very well with people around me and, who are maybe trying to do a career change or find themselves is as long-term travel. So maybe just taking a year off if right now you're fed up and you're not in the right job. Sometimes, taking a year off completely and traveling the world, or maybe doing something completely outside of scope there, is going to make you think about what it is that you want. So as opposed to trying to find what that new thing is quickly to fill the hole, I would say take the time, even if it's not a year, even if it's just a month, 2 months, you go backpack, you travel, you meet people, you're going to have some experiences also that will make you think about your life. So I tend to say life and work are not really far from each other. It's also where you are in your life and what you want to do. So career assessment there is helpful. Once you figure yourself out, which could take a long time depending on where you are right now, you need to position yourself, meaning you need to know what you're ready to showcase to the world. So I tend to encourage clients to have thought through this one, because you don't want to showcase yourself in a different job every month. So if I see that in January you're a marketing specialist, on February you're a finance specialist, and March you're supply chain, you're going to lose some credibility in the Swiss market. So That's why, before you do this, step number 2 is test it. Make sure that it's where you want to go. You've talked to people in the profession, and you're ready to showcase yourself in that profession. Maybe you've done some training, etc. So you're ready. And then once you're ready, you're showcasing yourself, the step number 3 is to use your network. So you're going to need your network because, again, you change careers or you're projecting yourself in something different. The job openings online are not going to fit you because you're probably not going to have enough years of experience, and people are going to be picky about what they want. So to test the market with the target position that you want, you need your network to see how they can help you get into those jobs. You need to use your network to maybe say a good word for you with another person, to give you constructive feedback on your new project. So, and again, I put there, make sure you give back to your network. This is also something that I think people forget in rules of networking, is that it's a circle of, I call that a virtuous circle, meaning that it should flow. You give, you get. And if you're only giving but you're not getting, there's something wrong there in the connection. So make sure that it flows. Make sure that people that you network with, really give and get from you in a natural way. But I say as a tip, do not contact your network too early when you're not sure what you expect from the contact. That said, if you're still in the phase where you're trying to figure out the jobs and you're networking with people, maybe to interview them about the job that they're doing, it's different. But when you're in a job search mode, meaning you know now where you want to position yourself and you want to get a job, you need to have a pitch ready. Again, you've showcased yourself. Remember step number 2. So it's a different phase there. If you're non-typical, atypical, I'm not sure it's correct wording there. If you're a non-typical profile, you're not going to find a job again. It's not going to come up to you on a job board. It's going to be probably a mix of opportunities and network. So I would say spend less time on job boards then and do more meetings in person. Try to find out, what the market needs, see maybe somewhere. And this is very linked to next week's presentation where we'll talk about creating networking opportunities and opportunities in general. It's easier to sell yourself when you're in front of an individual who's listening to you than just giving out a resume. Step number 5 is all about personality first. I've met some people who didn't have a resume on, in their purse or with them, but I saw their personality first, and it made me forget a little bit about maybe what their CV looked like. So if you're changing fields, you're going to need to use that step 5 a lot. So you're going to go to networking events and you're going to be this person who's a ray of light and that people really enjoy to speak to, because then they will be more engaged with you and therefore they will be more likely to recommend you. You'll be surprised, if I meet someone that I really, if the person has a really nice personality, if they're engaging, if they're willing to learn, so all these soft skills, basically flexible, etc. If I see someone with those types of qualities, I will be more likely to recommend them, be engaged with them, than if it's someone who's just a technical expert. And it happens to me all the time. I have very heavily qualified technical people that contact me. I have absolutely no flame in me that's popping out to help them. However, if I have someone who's extremely lively and again motivated, I think motivation goes a long way. If you're very dynamic, you have the energy, then people will be more likely to help you in general. Step number 6 is all about basically resilience and being tenacious. Switzerland is a tough country. You probably saw this in posts and forums. So there is competition, let's face it. So it's not going to be the person that's the most qualified, but the person that's going to be the most tenacious. So if you fail 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, God knows how many times, you're still there and you know that something good will come up. And I think, again, the people who tend to succeed, in my experience, are people who have kept themselves motivated until the end. Same when you go through the interviews. You don't want to fall apart after 1 or 2 tough interviews. You want to keep going and show that you're the right person for the job, especially if you're a job changer. So The recruiter will have the choice between someone who's done the job for 10 years and you who's new, maybe with a new diploma, maybe with an internet diploma. So they're taking a chance on you. You know, I have the new person on the blog who tells me they're a great, let's say, graphic designer. And then I have someone who's been doing it for 10 years, who's got a huge portfolio. Who do I choose? So for me, again, it's going to have to play on the personality. You know, do I want to hire the person who's got the skills and the proven experience, but who's a little bit maybe boring? Or do I want to hire someone who comes up from a different angle, who's lively, who's engaging? You see, that's the type of thing where you can, those are the type of traits in my view, or skills or qualities that you have to use if you want to come up before the person who's already doing the job for 10 years. So some helpful tips I can give you to change careers. So understand the language of the sector you're targeting. So for example, if you're in the commercial sector, meaning private sector, you want to use words like profits, increase in sales, etc. If you're in the not-for-profit, international organization, United Nations, whatever you want to call it, you want to use wording that's appropriate for that sector. So raising funds, donors. So especially if you're transitioning from one of the two, that's quite common in Geneva, where people want to go from one to the other. You can't just do a straight CV, send your resume like this. You have to think about the new organization you're applying for, what they need. So for a not-for-profit, if they see the word from the private sector, it's not going to be very clear for them. So focus on your new project. Make sure that you change the wording. Again, you have your resume reviewed. You can't, again, send it straight. You need to refresh your resume to reflect the new field. Also, the styles of the resume will differ. So if you're in accounting versus marketing, it's going to be completely different. And again, I try to encourage people to choose a resume that fits their profession. And I said this also before, but if you're in marketing, graphic design, any kind of creative field, you need to showcase that through your resume. So if I see someone who's in a creative field with a boring, dull, basic finance type of resume, it's not going to sell you very well. So again, use the documents to sell yourself. So you can check to see what's appropriate for your work. One place I can give you is Resume.io. It's very good. I keep talking about Resume.io because I think it's great. You can really showcase the resume based on your field. So it will automatically give you a document that's fit based on the type of work that you do. So go online, draft a profile, demonstrate, with your resume that showcases who you are. So in your resume, now that we talk about resume, you need to be selective. So you need to, basically, if you have many years of experience, you need to choose what's relevant, what's not so relevant. So there's a lot of cleaning up to do. So an exercise I want to give you for this presentation, maybe some further information for you, is list your target new career opportunities or possibilities. Look at the job descriptions online to see if it matches. That's going to give you an idea. And assess how big the gap is. So do you need to retrain, and how long do you need to retrain for? Again, I tend to think, depending on your the amount of time you have available, the amount of money, this exercise is going to help you figure out if your career change is good, feasible, if it's completely out of scope for you because it's just not the right timing. I think people underestimate the amount of work they will need to do to make it happen. Again, depending on how big the change is, it can really require a lot of investment. It could be going back to school. It could be, again, building up a new network. It's not something small. So if you liked what you heard today in this presentation about career change and you're interested in doing a career change yourself, feel free to book a call with me today. The link is below to book a call, a discovery call, so we can get to know each other, figure out how we can work together. On my website, you can also see how I work with clients to get more information. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to put a thumb up. and to share it with your network. Sharing is caring, and also it helps this channel to grow and provide you with this free information. So I wanted to thank you very much, and I will talk to you soon.